Hello, and welcome to today's MarketMuse webinar. I am your host, Jeff Coyle. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer for MarketMuse. And today's discussion is, it's a really exciting and it's an important one for everyone in, the content marketing world. We're going to be focusing on building and managing a team of freelance writers. And my special guest today, he really knows everything about this. He's also an expert in, among other things, building businesses, conversion rate optimization, search engine optimization, content strategy. If you know the MarketMuse world, we're definitely kindred spirits. But before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. We have a collection of webinars in our archive that are, people like Vince Stiletto, who we're going to talk about today. And it's huge wealth of information. So if you're looking for kind of some back archives, look on the site, look for some historical webinars, some really good ones, everything from internal linking expertise to content strategy basics. And this recording, just like that one, it will be available in the next few days. You're going to receive an email with linking and information about how to grab the download. And then again, this is an open kind of discussion format. If you have any questions, pass them along into the box on the right side on most of your screens, and we'll do our best to answer them either in line or at the end, or if we get a wealth of them like we did last month, we'll answer them via email if we run out of clack. So just as the intro, I wanted to talk to you about, Vincent Stiletto. He's, he owns and operates Word Agents, which is a content creation agency. He's got huge amount of expertise from, all angles and all walks of life. He's a portfolio owner, which is always, that's that speak from experience type of thing that you want with somebody who's going to be sourcing content creation. They've done it. They've been there. They know what gap analysis means. They know all the horror stories. He manages a team of 150, or I think it's even a little bit more now, for one-off orders. He builds, staffs, and creates teams to enable his customers, and his customers are of all company sizes. I think it's going to really relate to everyone that we have on our call. So again, I just want to introduce Vincent Stiletto.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad to be here today.
Thanks for joining us, for sure.
Thanks. So. Yeah, we've been running into each other for a few years now, so I'm glad we're able to sit down and just chat for a little bit.
Yeah, so as far as new things with Word Agents, you had mentioned kind of some new focus areas, and how has the last year been for the maturity of the company?
Sure. Basically, I started out of necessity. I was an SEO content guy, and I was building my affiliate websites, and I kind of quickly learned that there was a demand for content writing for our SEO optimized articles. And that's how Word Agents got started. I was writing by myself at first, and then just started growing the team, and learning how to build a business along the way. And all that work was really just kind of ad hoc work, one-off orders, and that's why we have this huge retail team of writers. And you can kind of just come to Word Agents, let me know what you want. I'll shoot you an invoice, and I can handle whether one article or 100 articles. But just from a business standpoint, that's not the most scalable thing in the world. So we are more moving towards a project management focused product where you come to us and this is for more like a mid-market agent company or a large enterprise company, and say, hey, we have this content strategy, we want you to execute it, and then we'll go ahead and build you a team that includes a project manager, however many writers are necessary for that project, proofreaders, editors. We'll build you your style guide, your content templates, and all that. And then it's kind of autopilot for those companies. We just execute the strategy and churn out the articles.
Yeah, exactly, and try to fit with their process, which we're going to talk about a lot. And I did notice a little bit of jargon there with the retail team. How do you differentiate your resources from that retail team to ones that might then become part of a team for a dedicated customer?
We're doing separate hiring sessions for each project management team, so we're not there's no like kind of cross contamination between teams. We know certain writers are good for the one-off orders and they can kind of just handle any topic, but then certain clients, especially your bigger enterprise and level companies, they demand either professional content marketers as writers, or subject matter experts that actually have experience in the vertical.
Yep. Well, that gets us in kind of the fun part, the topic at hand for the discussion, and that's the question that I always get. It's if content's so important, and I have to have a documented content strategy in house. I have to have the brand management, the rules, and the business rules, the style guides, that expertise driven focus. With all that in mind, why outsource in that scenario?
Yeah, and I think this answer will probably be different for who's listening. It's going to be a different answer for a large company compared to a portfolio SEO content guy. But from my standpoint, there's four points. You want to be able to leverage your time so you can work on your business. If you're in the operational rut of everything and you're dealing with writers and dealing with all the actual tasks of operating the content strategy, you don't have the time to grow your business. So that's the main point for me. You're also going to leverage the expertise of others. You can't. Nobody knows everything. So you want to go out and find the people that have the experience and on the topic, and hiring freelancers is a great way to do that. Scaling is a great way to speed up turnaround. If your content strategy has you turning out 200 articles in 3 months, you're probably not going to be able to do that with you and your chief marketing officer. So you got to build a little team to execute that and hit your deadlines. And finally, and this is probably something that most people don't think about often, is when you're outsourcing to freelancers, your only costs are building the strategy and the production of the content. You don't have them on your books, so the cost of benefits, health insurance, the taxes associated with that. So you're actually saving your business money in that regard when you outsource to freelancers.
So you mentioned a couple of really great points, and I think one of them that I see is I have the need to build a business case internally for these content resources. I think that what you mentioned is really important. It's documenting your team's operational opportunity costs.
Right.
So when we are causing someone to context switch, when we're getting someone who doesn't do this on a daily basis, they have to pop in and pop out. How much is that truly costing us? I mean, that's something that you had said that really resonates. That's what we see the most with our clients, where they're on the edge. Sometimes it's inside, sometimes it's outside. They don't have those documented processes. But that also begs the question: is the goal in the scenarios you talked about? When is the goal always to kind of mature and insource, or are there scenarios where that outsourced pool is going to be something that's always on, not something I'm just asking for budget every quarter?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually, and that's something I wanted to add to my notes and I forgot to. It really, everything I'm talking about today is based around a keyword-centric or topic-centric content strategy. If you're talking about like thought leadership or things that really only somebody with firsthand experience and years of experience they're going to pour their heart into the article, we're not really going to be able to do that for you. Freelancers aren't going to be able to do that for you. But if you're mainly for SEO reasons, if you're executing a topic-centric content strategy, this is where building a team of freelancers really shines, because you can really document all of your expectations. And as long as the writer has the chops, like basic writing chops, you can pretty much get what you need out of them. And you can either do that from a project to project, or an ongoing, quarterly content strategy that you're just rolling out each quarter.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's the goals of that content. It's the expectations. It's also the historical success that you've had with your own resources, and what the KPIs that you're driving. So I think always having a pool of available resources for your team to take advantage of when you do have something that you can clearly communicate with a style guide, with a documented content strategy, and with a series of content briefs, and you're confident shipping that out.
Right.
that this type of resource can execute, that's what you need. And so from my standpoint, it's always I always want my influencers and experts on demand and on call. And I also want a team of writers that I can take advantage of when the need, when the need's there, but there's also an opportunity there. And, I spoke about, that research component, the documented content strategy, the style guide, content briefs. What other things should be there to even start doing this? We see so many times clients come to us and they failed because of this, and then they just swear off outsourcing entirely. What's that, what's that starter package of things you need to prep before
Right.
you should even dive in,
This was stuff I just totally learned through experience, and I'm still learning just, by screwing things up. And I'm like, I got to do that better next time. But when you prepare for hiring and managing a team of writers, there's a few key points that you want to make sure you have in place before you even, put that advertisement up or start reaching out to freelancers. Building a team is completely meaningless if you don't have a pathway in front of you. So you need your blueprint down on paper, and you need to have a clear vision of that before you start even thinking about outsourcing. So a good way to start is probably write your internal style guide, which is going to be, your rules for tone of voice, writing style, grammar issues. You can always default to the AP style guide. We do a lot of times if the client prefers that. You want to have, you want to identify all of your content types. So your content type would be like blog posts, how-to articles, link bait, listicles, and each one of those is going to have its own specific set of rules. And we do that in the form of a template. So each, you have a blog post template, or a how-to article template, or a white paper template. So your operational procedures will be documented in your style guide that will apply to all templates, and then each individual content type template. And then finally, you just have a workflow document that kind of shows each of the roles in your system, what their responsibilities are and how they interact with the other roles. So this is pretty much what I build for myself for my sites that I build, and then for our enterprise clients who are hiring us to kind of handle their entire content strategy.
So so just to validate that, so basically you got to be considering, if you don't have your tone, your voice, if you're not using an existing style guide, if you're not sure what you're doing, it's going to lead to problems down the road. I mean, so even getting in that conversation with someone like you, or about what should we be doing in general. If you're in square one and you just start throwing content out there that's disjointed, it's going to cause downstream loss of power and loss of time. And in your case, when you're talking about preparation, it's also about like understanding the roles on the team that are going to be involved. What is the meets minimum for, let's say, a mid-size organization, 100-person organization with like a 3-person marketing team? What would you see in that scenario? What should they have at their disposal?
So from top level down, you have your manager, and I call it the content operations manager. This is just the person that's going to take the strategy, assign it to the writers, support the writers when they have questions. They're going to take the deliveries back and decide if it needs a revision or an edit, and if so, they're going to send it back to the writers with notes. If not, they're going to bring it to your publishing team, or your publisher, or publish it themselves. And they're the one point of contact with the CEO or the chief marketing officer in developing strategy. Below them, you have your actual content creator. That's your writer. They're the person that's basically just going to take the rules and turn it into an article. And then also the operations manager will also manage a proofreader, making sure that basic spelling and grammar are there. And depending on how polished you want your article, you can also bring in an editor as well, and that's more for copy editing and line editing, really perfecting each part of the article and make sure that it's answering the intent of the topic, and just it flows as well as it should.
Right. So in those scenarios, like, what are the key things you look for? Like, what do those job descriptions entail? When you're just looking for someone generally, because are you looking at their historic success? Are you analyzing their existing portfolio, their ability to, work in this specific space or on a lot of different things? What are the spans of the
Yeah,
of the
so
thing of the qualities you're looking for?
yeah, so that we're kind of jumping into the hiring part of this here. But my main thing is I'm just looking at personality traits.
Yep.
Especially for your manager, of course, you want to have what you call it. You want to make sure that they have experience, but the personality traits that I'm looking for anybody on the team are people that are really kind of like obsessively crazy about making sure that they hit your requirements, that they're asking questions, lots of questions, lots that they have a fun, outgoing personality. Basically, I shy away from hiring anyone that's kind of just looking to check everything off on a checklist and then be done with their workday. I'm looking for people who have a motivation to make sure that they do a good job. And sometimes experience isn't as important as these personality traits, in my opinion.
No, that's a great point. I think that like something you hit on right there, and I think we'll get into it in a little bit later too about hiring is really knowing. Um, you need to know how they like to receive feedback and how they like to present their own feedback, and make sure you're on the same page. I think that that goes a long way with these types of roles where maybe you've never worked with an editor, maybe you've never had a proofreader, and ensuring that everybody's going to be on the same page is going to have a big impact down the road. And it's also going to save you from situations where you're, you still feel like you have to edit everything anyway, which
Yeah.
that wasn't the point in the first place, right? Um, and so when you're finding these types of people, where do you look, and where have you had the most success? Is one question that I have for you. But then also, what do you say to someone who's when you bring to the table that they're going to do outsourcing, they're like, no, I won't be able to find anybody in my space.
Okay, so two questions there. So to answer the sources, I kind
Mhm,
of just have a shotgun approach, and it's really just some connections I've built up over a decade of doing this.
mhm,
The most success I have are from job boards. I really do
yep,
like ProBlogger. I think they do a great job, and they've for a while they didn't really catch on to what the market was using their platform for, but I think they've upgraded recently, and they realize who's coming and who's looking for writers and why they're looking for writers on that job board.
mhm,
Um, but there's others out there. Any kind of job board, you'll have good success. Craigslist used to be okay. The quality of writer that I find there is pretty dismal these days. But if you have the time to kind of sift through all those applications, and total tangent, but when you put an ad up, you're gonna get hundreds of applications, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds. So be prepared to go through all those applications. So classified sites like Craigslist, that's good. Upwork is here or there. I find with Upwork, the freelancers don't really care about deadlines too much. Like there's just like I guess their opinion is there's so much work out there that if they miss the deadline, there's more work to be had, and they don't really get penalized for missing deadlines. So just keep that in the back of your head if you're on Upwork. Facebook groups, especially, it depends. It's hit or miss. If you're an SEO guy like me and Jeff, there's a lot of SEO groups out there, and you might be able to source some good content marketers through that. And then two other sources that people probably don't think about a lot. Go into your local English department at your local universities and just trying to nab all those honor students. They're going to have a real good skill set. They're not going to have much experience, so you can mold them right away to how you want things written.
mhm.
And B, they're not going to ask for a lot of money. Typically you can just give them a flat rate per article, at large percentage points less than you would from somebody on a job board, just because they want to build up their experience and they want to do a good job for you. Oh my God, sorry about that. And
That's all right.
finally, you can always reach out to existing publications if you know a competitor has this awesome writer. there's nothing wrong with just shooting them an email and being like, hey, are you looking for more work? I've got, X amount of articles that I need done. I love your voice. You want to come work for Word Agents or whatever publication? So yeah, job boards, classified ads, freelancer sites like Upwork, Facebook groups, English departments, and existing publications.
Yeah, I
But
think
just know, just start with one and become an expert at that first, because each one's going to have its own little issues that you have to work out, and it's going to be specific to your project too.
Yeah, I think something you said is always been an approach that I've taken is certainly to understand the publications and how they source the ones that you'd be referencing in that scenario too. Are they in-housers? Are they, mercenary? Are they getting, a per article price? The more you can learn about those publications, the higher your hit rate. You don't look like you're just doing link outreach, like, hey,
Yeah,
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 you
yeah.
know, so if you know that, historically this publication is, you know, getting $100 an article or 500 or 1,000, making sure that what you're going to, the value you're going to present to that person is going to be equivalent or better. Those hit rates are very, very high.
Yeah.
So I think
You,
that's,
you just got to be creative. Like we just built a team of lawyers, and we actually were able to identify them because of a footprint, because they all work for an agency that specializes in writers for attorneys. So I was able to just scrape Google for that footprint. I found a bunch of them, and I hired them like that. So
no, that's,
you gotta put your thinking cap on and think about where the good writers are going to be, and just go find them and just be honest about what you're looking for.
yeah, the unfortunate reality is that in-house writing resources, how they're paid is wildly variable. It can be something that you'd cringe at looking at, or it can be something very high, and it's not always associated with their expertise, which is a little bit unfortunate. But if you're looking for writers, that can be something you can use to your advantage. The other question I had, and I know I pile them on, that's just the way I do
Go for it,
things,
buddy.
was what do you do if someone says, I'm not going to be able to find people in my space? This is the most common thing I hear when talking about scaling teams. They're like, I am focused on network monitoring software. How am I ever going to find somebody who knows anything about that?
Yeah, so that's something, a challenge that I deal with all of the time. And my first recommendation for that is what we'll do, because the problem is a lot when we talk about subject matter experts, a lot of time these subject matter experts can't write to save their life. Like it's really bad, and you end up paying these people a lot of money, and you don't want to tell them, hey, your writing is crap. But what we do to get around that is we'll just go out and find really good writers, really good people that understand SEO, understand content marketing, and then we'll hire those experts as consultants.
Yep.
And we'll have the writers and the consultants work together to basically fact check the article. But the person that's actually crafting the document is going to be your content marketer and your expert. You don't even have to have that awkward conversation about their writing quality. You just have to say, hey, is this correct? What would you change about this? And there might be a few back and forth revision rounds there. But that's usually the best way to overcome the problem of finding an expert writer in a difficult niche.
That makes the cost of this webinar paid for, by the way, and that's one of my secrets. It's always been one of my secrets. It's that you've got to have creative writers, you've got to have great writers, and if you need subject matter experts that aren't great writers, put them as part of a team. Have them be the interviewer. Turn their vision into greatness. The punchline is, I'm not very good at writing. I'm terrible at it. If anyone knows it, I don't write, and you can't read my handwriting even if I do. But I will record hours of stuff, and then a great writer can turn that into a beautiful narrative. And that is that's the spirit here, I think, is when you're managing that team. You can take advantage of your SMEs. If you're working with someone like Word Agents and you want information from your experts on the staff to make it to Word Agent's ear, that's something that you can facilitate, and get that information in the right place so that their writers can turn it into gold, and what you do. all the time.
I think it's important just to have a little bit of perspective too, like
Yep.
as a marketing expert or as an executive at your company, you just got to remember that when you outsource to writers, they don't have the same experience that you do, and they're
Right.
not going to understand all the industry jargon and what we do as SEOs or digital marketers. You just have
Right.
to go into their, just looking for those personality traits that I was talking about and then
Yep.
be prepared to mold that person to what you want them to be.
I think that's perfectly said. I got a really great, before we get into hiring and managing, a really great question from the audience, from Lisa. When you're sorting through those candidates, let's say regardless of the source, what is a red flag? What are the things what would be the top 5 things that cause you to go, nope? Are you regretting
I'm gonna
something?
get into that in the hiring session, which
Yeah,
we're just about to jump into.
yeah, for sure.
But basically, you'll have a feel for it, Lisa. I mean, yeah, people that just seem like they want to get through the project as fast as possible to get that paycheck, or if
Mhm.
they're just kind of casting a blanket application response and it's kind of obvious, like they're not really talking about your job, they're just giving you basic information about their services. Those are things that like kind of turn me off right away.
Gotcha. And so tying that to hiring and managing that team, when do what can you say about that general process of building that up, making sure that you've validated the decisions you've made, as a first part, and then what is that checklist for, ongoing management of that outsourced team?
Sure. So basically, freelancers are a finicky bunch. So the interview and I guess how you decide to take on a new writer is good. That process is going to be different for freelancers than a W-2 employee.
Hmm.
Um, so the way I do it is I install barriers into the application process, that kind of like hoops that they have to jump through to show that they're actually really interested in the job and they're just not kind of casting that net to see what's going to stick and who's going to hire me. So the way I do this is in my application, I say this is how you apply, and that includes using a specific subject line in your email, attaching a specific number of articles, not links, but documents, attachments,
Hmm.
and we just ask them to do these things to see how serious they are and if they're actually paying attention to our instructions, because being detail oriented is a big part of what we look for in a writer that's going to be doing keyword centric content. So yeah, so the first step is installing a few specific instructions in the initial application, which would be using a specific subject line, responding with certain information, and just following very specific instructions. And out of those, 300 applications that I get, probably 200 of them are going to be disqualified right there because they didn't follow those instructions. So now you whittle that field down to 100. Um, and then we're going to give them another barrier. We're going to say, okay, this is what we do. This is what the job is about. If you're interested, respond with this information. And again, only about 50% are going to respond with that information. And the 50% left, the 50 writers that you have left out of the 300 applications, you can go ahead and give test assignments to your top 5%, So you're only actually evaluating 50 writers. You're not going to evaluate all 300. And you do that just by seeing who's a joker and who actually wants this job, who's actually showing real interest in working for your project as opposed to any project. And that's it. I give them probably like 3 or 4 test assignments, and then if they pass those, if they meet my expectations, they're on the team. I always let them know they're on a 90-day probation, so if their quality kind of takes a nosedive after those first test assignments, maybe they're outsourcing to a better quality writer just to get on board or something like that. I've definitely had that happen before. We're gonna snip that out through our 90-day period.
Wow.
Um,
That just to stop. I mean, that is, take that to the bank. I'm very improvisational with those types of interactions. I think there's such value to bringing it back to a paint by numbers type approach, and then part 2 being focused on writing and skills. So it's will you follow the directions? Do you have the writing skills? And now, show it. I think that's a beautiful 1, 2, 3. Anyone can adopt. So
Yeah, and then the management part, the final part of this process is really just what we do at Word Agents is we do a quarterly audit of the entire team,
mhm.
and as a rule, we're just gonna fire the bottom 10 to 20% of our team, and we're gonna replace them with new writers, and hopefully those new writers are gonna excel, and we're looking to constantly improve. So we have our internal evaluation checklist that we've created over time, and
Ooh.
that's every 90 days where we're just every writer gets evaluated against this, and we just cherry pick projects over the quarter, and so there's no preference given, and if they don't pass, if they end up in that bottom 20%, 10%, depending on our workload, really we might need to hang on to them for another week or so just to get through something, but they're usually asked to leave, and we find new replacements for them and just start the process all over.
I mean, yeah, and that's, was actually a question that came from the audience as well. They had asked about what are the things that you look for in that evaluation. As much as you would share, I know from our standpoint, MarketMuse technology can evaluate the expertise, the comprehensiveness of writing work. Not everybody can write great content about kitty cats as well as CRM software. So
Yeah,
it's also good to see if Karen is really great at writing about cats and not about CRM software. I'll get her more jobs that are about cats, right?
right.
And for us, it's conformance with our documented content strategy, conformance with content briefs that we provide. It's conversions, whatever that KPI, as well as recurring traffic generated. Those are the things that we bake in addition to our automated assessment
Right.
techniques. But what other things do you think about, that
It's,
I wouldn't, because I know
it's
you're very project management focused.
yeah, it's really just a adherence to the operational procedures that they've agreed to. So is the writer getting a high number of complaints, a high number of revision requests? That's just from a quality standpoint. Eventually, we can maybe build in a market use to our process and evaluate that way. But also, are they always hitting their deadlines, or is the team leader always having to chase them down? Are they butting heads with management? Just like intangible things like that. Sometimes they might be a great writer, but they just don't fit with us, and we just gotta say goodbye for that reason alone.
No, that happens more than you'd like,
Yeah,
especially as you go through the process. But writing's tough. I mean, it is. It's very difficult. You do desire the creativity of somebody who can turn something in from a work order into a narrative, and that's hard work. I mean, and
yeah,
I think it's respect and empathy goes a long way as well. And some other really awesome questions coming in.
sure.
How do you recommend approaching those universities for writers, and what's that outreach process look like, and how is that different than what you might, the free money with Word Agents, just kidding, like you might put on Craigslist? So.
Uh, English professors are usually pretty cool people. They're not like your tight, rigid professors of days past. You can usually just approach them like a normal person and be like, "Hey, this is what I do," and your students can start earning money. And if you just kind of position it as you're giving the student opportunity to start their career, their professional career, and gain experience, they usually jump onto that right away.
Gotcha. I found that for technical topics, going to unconventional sources, so other departments as well, can be valuable. So some people are just itching for a way to present what they know. So if you are in a more technical space, don't hesitate to get out of the engineering or get out of the English department too. You can find some
Yeah.
diamonds in the rough. There's a lot of them there.
I usually ask for honor students, so I guess that would apply to any, and honor students can be able to write a good article, hopefully, if they're in the honor system. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, just with the students, just remember that they're young kids, they don't have any experience, so your management cost on that is gonna be a little bit higher than if you go to a professional freelancer.
Yeah, I know the first time you realize you actually have to do the work that you're signing on to do is always a challenge.
Yeah, you're
I,
helping them transition into the working world, so you gotta get over those hurdles.
I can only say I'm not saying that as Grandpa Jeff, but I'm actually saying that because I was that person as well, and got smacked in the face. I think about sophomore year in college,
Yeah.
for not doing what I said I was going to do. But anyway, that's another story for another day. The Another question we got is on test assignments, like you described. Do you pay for that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I personally, I always value everybody's time. I don't want people to put in an hour or two of work and not get anything out of it. And
Yep.
especially with freelancers, you're dealing with like stay-at-home moms or college graduates, or they're not the most sophisticated, and they're not going to immediately realize that if I do a good job on this, that means I'm going to have X amount of dollars in my future, because I'm going to be on this team for the long term. They're really just trying to make ends meet or make an extra income on the side. So I'm always paying for test assignments. With that said, if somebody just goes and copies and pastes an existing article on the same topic, I'm just not accepting it. So you got jokers that just try to get that test assignment payment. Those guys, I just kick to the curb and say, hey, see you later. This is not going to work out.
When your first screen share, they have typed into their Google history article spinner. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
you turn and run.
Wording,
Okay, that's a pretty good policy,
exactly.
buddy. So you pay by the job after that, or after they become kind of
By the
converted.
job, and then depending on the project, it might be either a contract payment where I just pay them for the entire contract, or
Mhm.
it might be ad hoc where I'm just paying them by the article. Word agents and just generally the writing market in general is always pay by word.
Mhm.
But if you're doing client work like we do, we're paid by the contract, and sometimes we can extend that to the writers as well.
That's always been the tough part for me. And actually in building MarketMuse, um, really wanting to be able to assess with artificial intelligence what it means to be an expert. And one component of that is succinctness, is how succinct your writing is, and how high quality you can be while still building a great narrative that hits on all the user intent profiles that are needed to cover this topic.
Yeah.
So it's always a yin and yang when I look at a pick sheet, and it's like, is this article 100 words, 300 words, 600 words? If you can write the best article in the world in 1,000 words, and who's to say that 1,200 one is better? I think if you've addressed all the common reader concerns, that's why I love the idea of contract-based payment. And I'm interested in kind of, has that caused you to be differentiated against other writers' experience?
It's really, I mean, being
It's hard.
concise and being succinct is a challenge we deal with all the time, and
Mhm.
it's just the expectation level of the client, and
Yep.
especially with enterprise companies, they want perfect content. So
Right.
their budget has to be there for me to go find the writers that understand how to be concise and succinct.
Hmm.
I generally charge more, so the price goes up, and it takes us longer to find those writers and negotiate with those writers, so the price goes up. Um, but for the most part, it really just depends on your goals, and a lot of times a mid-level writer will get you to where you need to go, and that's just fine.
No, I think that's a great point. And what you said is kind of valid for any agency or any client relationship. It's set the expectations properly. And if it's say, hey, here's the thing that goes into it. We want to find the ideal writer to fit this style guide. Here's what it's going to take, and this is going to be the same case if you're doing the work. We have a wider network. We have great processes, and we're going to find these perfect people, but they aren't going to be $100 for a 500
Right.
word article. It's going to be higher. Your per unit cost is going to be higher. There is going to be project based payments. So just let's make sure we can validate that with one another, so that we're incented to do the best job we can to find that
Yep.
perfect team. I mean, that's spoken from
That was one of the that was
through
one of the
wisdom.
biggest challenges I've had from a business ownership standpoint, is just saying yes too often. And at the start, I just wanted whatever contract I could get to pay the bills, and I would just take on whatever I could. But something I've learned, especially over the last 12 months, is saying no is just as powerful, increasing your ROI than saying yes. And if it's not going to be a right fit, say no, and you'll be better off. Maybe you'll hook up down the line, and they'll become a client somewhere down the line. But you're never going to run into failing to meet their expectations when you say no.
Yeah, chasing the MRR dragon can be tough though, but
Yeah.
as we all know. So the couple of other questions that we're going to get to at the tail end that are coming in. By the way, audience, awesome questions.
Cool.
But I wanted to catch up with what your processes and what your MarTech, what your stack looks like. What do you enable your writers with? What do you enable from the operations perspective? With MarketMuse, we're thinking about, what you see on the screen with that end-to-end content strategy, the research, the planning, building a briefing solution, which can include things like tone and voice style guide, but also a per page assessment of what is needed, the actual writing, the editing process. And then again, promotion, making sure these things are successful and being able to go back and look at the writing and say, did it hit all the marks? Did it improve our existing content's, performance? And then going back into research mode. And, so when you're thinking about word agents, I know you're providing value outside of just the writing. What would your position be on some of the things you've also benefited customers?
Well, I'm very much focused on being a specialized agency. So we just want to execute your content strategy. We don't want to get into the content strategy business at all.
Right.
So that's why we hook up with agencies like From the Future, Nick Eubanks, and other agencies, and we let them do the strategy part of it, and then they send their clients to us, and we'll actually write the content. And that the same thing goes on the back end evaluation. We just do the best job we can. We make sure that we hit all the promises that we said. And, as a client, you're going to evaluate if that improved ROI for you or not. And that'll make, drive your decision to continue with word agents or not. But as far as the actual process for what we do, my tech stack is very basic. I'm using a lot of Google's products, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Suite. We're using a form stack form to create our work orders, and that kind of plugs into like just like a spreadsheet project management system that I built myself. We're gonna probably move to like an Asana or a Trello after that, or Monday.com looks pretty sick.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So for the past year, I've been messing around with building my own SaaS on the back end. And just because I don't have the development chops to know if I'm getting, a good bang for my buck, we're probably just going to, link together a bunch of third-party tools like Monday.com and FormStack and, invoicing software. But if you're tight on budget, Google's products are really good, and you can link stuff together with Zapier, and you can have your whole project's workflow system just with Google Sheets.
Yeah. Zap them right into your Slack.
yeah, Slack too. We use Slack all the time, and management. I think we still use Skype.
Nice.
Was there anything I didn't touch upon there?
No, I mean, that's perfect. It really describes kind of our partnership, as well as, like you mentioned, with your Nick Eubanks name drop. Now he's got 2 name drops. Is that you're writing your content strategy execution, as a service, and it's super clean. I think the value is there, and that's why you're one of our partners, and we'll get into the kind of some of those ways that we worked together in the past. But I really just wanted to dive in so that people get a sense for how they could do it, and they can do it whether they've got the bandwidth, the ability to build, the ability to hack something together, or if they've got the resources to have a tens of thousands of dollars per month infrastructure. Anything can work, with the right knobs in place. And I thought that was a really good point. But before we also get into a few other comments about that specific topic, is how much of your project management process do you share with writers?
I'm very conscious of that, and I kind of limit our operation procedures to the role. So, the writers are only seeing what they're responsible for. The team leaders and project managers are only seeing what they're responsible for. And my content director, he sees all of it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. No, that's really important. I think that the question, if I'm looking at the email, right, work is somebody who does a similar thing that's word agents.
Yeah.
So they're wondering how maybe they're doing a little bit of competitive analysis, but we'll say about that. But I thought that was really interesting, is how much do you share? And I think that that's always a topic of conversation with this. It's to say, how much do these freelancers speak to one another, if at all, if they're on the team? How much of your process do they see, or are they seeing only their work orders? I think that that's always something that is a hard knife edge, because you want them to be part of a team. You want them to have that type of experience, but you also do want them to hit the mark, and not have them not step in any potholes.
Yeah, and I my main concern would just be freelancers running off with our internal documents and bringing them to other agencies. At the end of the day, I don't think there's too much IP there that it's going to kill our business. I think a lot of it is just elbow grease and doing the work. But from a broader view, just doing this webinar, like giving away like what I'm doing as a business, my viewpoint is I'm not going to have every client. It's not a zero sum game,
Right.
and a lot of times, people come to word agents because it's convenient, and if you have the resources to do it and you value your time over doing it yourself, that's why you come to us. And if you don't, that's why I'm doing this presentation today. And you can go and do it yourself, and no hard feelings.
Well, that's the thing about when it's very content marketing and search is very intoxicating, right? It's that, and that's why a business like MarketMuse, when we have someone come in and they are writing 4 to 5 articles per month, let's just say, I'm really confident that in about 6 months they'll be writing about 10 to 15, because when you see that the better conversion rates to a successful content item. When you have those success stories, it's so much easier to make the case for budget, or you just want to write more and better and higher quality, and it feeds on itself. So I think the way you play it is right on. It's that we're first going to be convenience, and then you'll have a desire for more, because all the product that you're going to get is top quality. I think that's really poetic on that front.
And we're very upfront and transparent about this. Freelance writers aren't for everybody. We do the SEO optimization, topic centric, keyword centric content. If you want to be a thought leader, if you want to have super branded content and you really understand your brand, a freelancer is not going to be good at that. And that's where you want to have your in-house writers, or your guy on the books that's you're going to grow with your company over years and years and years. So it's really just project based. We work a lot with the marketing departments at companies and through their marketing budgets, and we work really well with portfolio owners too.
Nice. Well, some other really specific questions. How do you bridge the language gap when you're working with maybe a non-native writer, and it, but do you work with non-native speaking writers?
In 10 years of business, I have never taken on a non-American writer. So we've always been very upfront with only American writers, and that's actually part of the application process. We make it very obvious that if you're not an American that speaks native English, you're not going to get paid. So if they slip through and get a test article from us, we're going to know through their PayPal that they're not an American, and then we have to say goodbye to them.
Well, my lead content strategist is probably cringing in his seats because he hails from our neighbors in the north. We'll have that discussion.
I'm sorry. I do have a couple Canadians, and I do have a couple of English writers too, and there's nothing wrong with those. I'm talking more about like you guys that English as a second language.
Right. No, I'm just busting your chops. But no, that's cool. So another cool question here is checking for plagiarism. Do you use a copyscape? Do you use a...
Every single article that we put out goes through Grammarly.com, and it also goes through Copyscape. So the reason we use Grammarly, it's a way to qualify the spelling and grammar with a single metric. It's not the most perfect, but it's something that both sides can agree upon and say, hey, as long as this is 90% or over, you passed your spelling and grammar test. Um, and then for Copyscape, that's just for plagiarism. We always guarantee anything you get from word agents is going to be 100% unique.
Nice. No, that's great. Yeah, but I think it's a must. It's a must do, even though it's kind of a part of the job. But yeah, Grammarly is quick, easy. There's other solutions for more of the enterprise level, like Acrolinks, which we recommend. They are a partner of ours as well, to do a much more robust job to also check on tone and voice.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I'm gonna have to check them out after.
Yeah, they have it's basically a rules engine, as well as the ability to put your style guide and configure it, and then check against that as well. So something to check on. If the writers are doing a good job, are they just getting more work, or do you have recognition?
We limit all writers to 10,000 words maximum per week. Typically, they're in that 5,000 to 7,500 word mark. And that's just straight from experience and feedback. Once 10,000 words are hit, I see a huge dip in quality immediately after that level. And it's like 2,000 words a day, and that they start to check out after that. Maybe
That's
it's just
a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
but
lot.
that's that SEO keyword centric stuff. If we're working on a high level article that's going to take like 20 hours of research and 5 revision rounds, the writer's only going to do maybe 1 or 2 of those a week.
Gotcha.
So again, it's the project and the goals of the project that kind of determine that.
Nice. So you're going to have your elite list. They're going to continue to get work, but you are going to cap them because you just want to be sensitive to the quality that you'd expect. You don't want to throw them into a spiral that's going to cause them to not succeed.
Right.
No, I love that. As far as revisions, version control, how do you deal with freelancers using kind of specialized word processors? Like what kinds of things have you dealt with that type of
usually if they deliver in like an open office or all those like free word processors or even Word, we're gonna, and it requires a revision, we're gonna populate it into Google Documents, and then we're just gonna use their editing system for the revision process.
Okay. No, that's cool. I was wondering because version control when you're outsourcing, it kind of has 2 lives, right? You've got the document and your internal revision process, and then you've got the client revision. Is that baked into most of your agreements that they get a couple rounds of feedback?
For the ad hoc stuff, we pretty much put it on the client to express their expectations. And we say, hey, our service guarantees are this, this, and this, and that includes a Grammarly score of 90% or higher. So a revision won't be a part of that. As we'll guarantee them to execute on all the instructions that we agreed upon before production started, but revisions would be an extra price. For the project stuff, the ongoing stuff, we'll just bake that into the contract. If you want 1 revision, 2 revisions for every article, that's just something we build into the contract.
Cool. So you just have to add MarketMuse score onto that, and it'd be perfect. But anyway, that's another topic. But yeah, no, that's great. So one more question is do clients interact directly with your writers, or only through a mid-channel such as you or a member of your team? I'm rephrasing that, but I think I got the gist of the question.
So I'll never give away our writer names or contact information, just because it took us a lot of time to find them, and you can be cute and there's ways to find it, and I'm not going to tell you how to do that, but for the most part, they're dealing with a single point of contact and an account manager. It's usually me. I do have another account manager that's starting to taking over some of the stuff that I can't handle, just because there's only so many hours in a day and I'm wearing a lot of hats. So eventually it won't be me, but for now it's me for a lot of the project-based stuff, or for the ad hoc stuff, you might be dealing with Chris or Sarah.
So nothing you produce is going to be bylined, for example. This is all content.
Everything is ghostwriting. Writers never get author credit. It's just how we're built. I can't speak to people doing it differently.
No, I think it's all right on. And we're getting close on time, but I think that really walks through how to work with an agency like Word Agents and how to integrate in your process some things that you've experienced, and it really is. I mean, you're talking from experience, and that's the
Yeah,
best way to talk.
yeah, for sure.
It's really cool. Well, other than the question about your guitar, which I will not ask, thank you for that. But it is in the background, I guess. Any last words from you, Wordage, this discussion?
I actually enjoyed this, man. I would love to chat with you some more. This is, just through our conversations, light bulbs pop up over my head, and I just want to go and start doing stuff. But this was a great exercise, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. I know that I can be a little wordy sometimes.
No, I think it was right on. What I did want to mention is just a quick promo. You see it on your screen, 10% off for new clients who join between June 30th. Reference this webinar,
Yeah,
and Vim will hook up on that promo. MarketMuse, as always, on our main site, you can analyze an existing content item, get some really basic assessment of the comprehensiveness and quality of that content item on that homepage. It is kind of a starter set of recommendations like that, which you would receive inside the full MarketMuse suite. But I do, Vincent, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this has been I mean, you could stack up a top 10 list of things that are at least things that are just amazing takeaways that are gonna, save anyone listening to this piles of money and piles of time. So I can't thank you more for joining us, and I really appreciate it.
well, thanks, Jeff. That's awesome, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, cool.
All right,
All right,
guys.
thank you so much. I appreciate it again. Cheers.
All right, take care now.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.